Good evening. Sorry. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's candidate forum being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Yolo County. I'm Michelle Famula, president of the Yolo County League. The National League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 in Chicago, 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified and women won the vote. Formed by suffragists, the League began as a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million women carry out their new responsibilities as voters. Today, the League's mission is to invite all citizens to participate in voting and government actively and with good information. The League is a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse candidates or political parties. As part of our voter education programs, we sponsor candidate forums like this. Our forums are structured according to the guidelines established by the League of Women Voters of California to promote fairness and discourse. Our League thanks all attendees for joining us this evening. We recognize that these are challenging times with many divergent perspectives. We ask that everyone here tonight treat each other with respect and appreciation. We value everyone's beliefs and opinions and require that all dialogue and actions be constructive. Anyone displaying disruptive or disrespectful behavior may be asked to leave. Tonight's forum is being broadcast on Channel 21 by Woodland TV, as well as being live streamed on their YouTube page. The event is also being recorded and will be available for viewing online until after Election Day on June 2nd. The two candidates here tonight are running for Judge of the Superior Court of Yolo County. Seated on the left is Ryan Davis, and on the right is Diane Ortiz. They will have the opportunity to tell you about themselves and their candidacy, and to respond to questions from both the League and from the audience. The moderator for tonight's forum is Faye Smith-G, a board member of the League of Women Voters of Yolo County. I'd like to turn this over to Faye.
Thank you, Michelle. Is this loud enough for everyone? Okay. Each candidate will give a 1.5-minute opening statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to 4 questions drafted by members from the Yolo County League and approved by our board. The order of the candidates' responses will alternate. Our timekeeper, Zachariah Aquinda, will advise candidates when 15 seconds remain and when their time is ended. The League questions will be followed by audience questions, which will be screened and prioritized by League volunteers to avoid duplication and ensure a range of topics and issues. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to the audience questions. Please note that due to time constraints, we may not be able to use all the audience submitted questions. Following these questions, the candidates will be given 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. To close, the moderator, myself, will make some brief remarks. Please refrain from applauding or in any other way demonstrating support or non-support for any candidate until the end of the forum. Attendees causing disruption will be asked to leave. At the end of the forum, we will ask for applause for both candidates. You received a card as you entered with guidelines for written questions on the back of the card. Please submit your questions that apply to both candidates and are related to the Office of Superior Court Judge. Our question sorting team will combine duplicates and eliminate inappropriate questions, including those with negative remarks, rude language, or personal attacks. When you have completed writing your question, please pass it to the aisle. Our volunteers will be collecting your questions throughout the first portion of the forum until approximately 6:21 p.m. So now we'll move to the candidates' opening statements, starting with Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Diane Ortiz, and I am a Deputy District Attorney here in Yolo County. I've been working in this county for 16 years now. Prior to coming to Yolo County, I was a prosecutor in Shasta County for just under a year. And prior to that, I worked for the California Highway Patrol in headquarters for 9 years. My final 4 years with the CHP were in the legislative office, reviewing bills and determining what impact, if any, it would have on the department, and then I would make a recommendation to the commissioner. As far as my time here in Yolo County, I've been assigned to our trial team, so I've done trials. I've been assigned to the sexual assault team, domestic violence cases, pretty much every team within our office. But the last 5 years, I have been a part of our child abduction unit. So that's a civil unit within the DA's office, and we're charged with locating and returning children who have been removed from this county or state or country in violation of another parent's custodial rights. And I look forward to having you hear more about me over the next few questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to Mr. Davis.
Thank you for being here. I'm Ryan Davis. I'm running for Yolo County Judge to continue my work as a committed member of the judiciary, but in the service of my home community. I already do the work of a judge. I wear a robe, I have a courtroom, and I preside over trials and hearings with a family law assignment. And I've already been through the same training that all new judges and court commissioners go through in California. I'm asking voters to place their trust in me because I already have years now of experience managing a courtroom, preparing for calendars, taking evidence, ruling on objections, making decisions, and writing orders. That experience, combined with my broader contribution to the judiciary and the legal community as a whole, I think explains why over 50 judges and commissioners have endorsed my campaign, including several here in Yolo County. Before I became a judicial officer, I spent my career in public service. I spent a decade as a public defender at the county, state, and federal levels, mostly representing men and women on California's death row, and then joined the Attorney General's office and gained civil litigation experience. So my experience now spans criminal law, civil law, and as a judicial officer, family law. Thank you.
And now we'll begin the questions from the lead. First question, Mr. Davis. How would you ensure that your professional background does not compromise your ability to serve as an impartial judge?
So I think this is a fair question. I do think it's true that prosecutors and defense attorneys can, over time, come to see the world through a particular lens. Prosecutors are focused on public safety, protecting victims, accountability, and that's a good thing. Public defenders are focused, of course, on representing individual clients, but also often things like civil liberties, socioeconomic disadvantage, systemic racism. That's a good thing too. But when you become a judge, you take on a different role. You set those perspectives aside and focus entirely on what you've been trusted to do, which is adjudicate cases one at a time based on the facts that are presented to you in that case and the applicable law. And this is something that can be done, and you can prepare to do it. We've seen many prosecutors, right, become fair-minded and excellent judges. Let's be honest, fewer public defenders have had that opportunity, although that's begun to change, and I hope to be part of that change here in Yolo County, where no sitting judges have that background. But I'm not asking you to trust that I can flip a switch. Years ago, with the goal of becoming a judge in mind, I joined the AG's office and didn't just gain experience in civil litigation, but also experience representing the people of the state of California and their elected leaders. I've done that, I've worn that lens, and I've also represented individuals against the power of the state. I've done both. And then, of course, I became a commissioner where, for the past 3 years, I've been doing this work, presiding over hearings, making decisions from a neutral position. So impartiality is not something that I'm asking you to trust that I can develop. It is something I've already been practicing from the bench.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Ortiz?
Thank you. So my professional background in nearly 2 decades as a prosecutor provided me with experience that will actually enhance my impartiality on the bench. Everyone has a role within the justice system, and the role of a prosecutor is to seek justice. And the rules within we have to follow require a prosecutor to protect due process, to protect the innocent, and to ensure a just and legal outcome. And that's what I have been doing for 17 years in the trenches of Yolo County Superior Court, in front of Yolo County Superior Court judges. Now, when I take the bench, I'll be calling strikes and balls. I think my husband might owe me a drink for that. My husband is an MLB authenticator, and I told him I would get that out. But ultimately, I'm going to be an umpire, right? And on the bench, I'm going to be following the Judicial Code of Ethics. That is a safeguard for impartiality and integrity on the bench. What I can assure you on the bench, in addition to being impartial, is that my decisions are not going to be based on the satisfaction or to satisfy a prosecutor, a police officer, a witness, a victim, the media, or public opinion. I can assure you that I will rule fairly, and I will do it with compassion, with empathy, and with integrity.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. The second question, what do you see as the most significant challenge facing the Yolo County Superior Court in the next 5 years, and how would you address it? Ms. Ortiz?
Thank you. So having practiced in this specific courthouse in this county, I can tell you there's 2 that we're facing. One is the number of criminal court judges. Currently, we don't have enough criminal court judges on the bench, or criminal law trial departments on the bench, to handle all of the cases we have. So it's greatly impacted. So that's causing cases to get continued, cases to be moved around from judge to judge, and essentially a delay in justice, a delay in the law. So with that, I would be working with my colleagues on the bench to figure out how, through efficiency, preparation, and courtroom assignment, we can mitigate those issues. Number 2 is budgetary constraints, which I think in every county we have. More specifically, in our county, I've been a part of what was the Addiction Intervention Court, Mental Health Diversion. And in those courts, I can tell you that I saw firsthand that with appropriate resources, the desire to change, wraparound services, that rehabilitation is possible. However, we need funding for those providers, for CommuniCare, for HHSA, for probation, in order to keep those courts going. And because they're the low-hanging fruit, in essence, those are something we can't maintain. And I think it's something that our county needs to look at, not necessarily just on the from the bench's perspective, but I just think county-wide, with the lack of housing, lack of funding for Walter's House, or our tiny homes, Fourth and Hope. We need more resources, and in order for those resources, we need more funding.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Thank you. So I think a lot of the challenges that Yolo County is facing, including those referred to by Ms. Ortiz, are the same challenges or similar challenges that courts are facing throughout the state, and challenges I've had the opportunity to work on through my work on the Judicial Council, which is the policy-making administrative body over the state judiciary. So let me pick out three. One is the increase in self-represented litigants. So more and more people are coming to court without the representation of an attorney. And that creates special challenges for a judge. It can create the need for clearer communication, sometimes maybe more active management from the bench. For me, I've already experienced working with self-represented litigants from the bench, especially because I'm in a family law assignment where many litigants, most, are unrepresented. Second, I'll refer to access to justice, which is a big topic. I have one thing in mind here, though. A special challenge that has come up, not necessarily in Yolo County at least yet that I'm aware of, but throughout the state, is what our Chief Justice has referred to as the chilling effect of immigration enforcement at courthouses. So one thing that's required for access to justice is that people feel safe coming to the courthouse to seek to deal with their disputes and to seek justice. The Judicial Council just recently, at our last meeting, approved a rule requiring all courts to collect data with regards to civil arrests at courthouses so that we can know what's going on and figure out what to do to deal with it. And then third, I'll refer to the expansion of mental health diversion. That's a legislative policy choice, but it creates special challenges for the bench. How I would deal with this is in the courtroom, all of these things, is courtroom management and involvement in the statewide judiciary.
Thank you. Now the third question. What is your understanding of the duties and responsibilities of a judge in shaping the courtroom culture, including how judges address participants, attorneys, and the public? Mr. Davis.
So judges play a critical role in developing, shaping courtroom culture, making sure it's a place where everyone feels safe and has the opportunity to be heard. It shows up in lots of ways. One is in the courtroom itself. So I aim for an appropriate balance between formality and approachability. A courtroom shouldn't be too casual. It's a serious place, and the litigants need to know that the judges take it seriously. But at the same time, I believe that if a judge is overly stern, that can create a problem because litigants, especially self-represented litigants who might come into court already feeling nervous, can get shut down. And that results in the court missing out on important information and people leaving the courthouse feeling unheard. Also, behind the scenes in the courthouse, because courtroom culture isn't just created by what happens on the record, right? A judge needs to model with all courtroom staff respect, right? Respect for people's names, for people's pronouns, different experiences, right? Not making light of mental health and substance abuse issues. Third, through broader involvement with the judiciary, my work with the Judicial Council is part of that, helping shape policies that affect court culture throughout the state beyond any single courtroom. And then finally, in public, right? Judges have to be independent from politics. When I joined the bench, I shut down my social media entirely. I then had to open a new Facebook page when I became a candidate, and we'll see if that lasts beyond the election. But I'm proud of the support I have, including from a lot of elected leaders, including from the Democratic Party and various Democratic groups. But I have been firm about my position that I will not make commitments that I can't keep. The answer is no when I'm asked whether I'll support Democrats, for example.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Ortiz?
I agree that courtroom culture is based on judicial demeanor and judicial leadership. Here in Yolo County, I've been in front of assigned sitting judges, I've been in front of visiting judges, retired judges. I've stood next to victims, I stood next to the accused, and I'm very aware and very sensitive to how a judge's demeanor impacts the decorum in the court or someone's ability to feel heard. So, with that said, patience is necessary. A judge that shows patience, a calm demeanor, respect, is going to be a judge who will get that in return. If a judge becomes dismissive, sarcastic, loses their temper, then the litigants in front of them will take that as that being okay. So I've been in these courtrooms long enough to know that sometimes defendants, defense attorneys, prosecutors start to lose that boundary when they feel like they are no longer in control. And it's incumbent upon a judge to rein that back in respectfully, maybe call them to the bench and say, at this point, we're going to take a recess. But really, it's the judge that sets that tone. And I will continue to remain respectful and follow the golden rule that my 6-year-old daughter comes home with. The golden rule of treating others the way you would want to be treated should not get lost upon entering the courthouse, and it won't be lost in my courtroom.
Thank you. And now we'll pause for about 3 minutes to allow our volunteers to collect any remaining audience questions. Please pass your final questions to the aisle. Question prepared by the lead, Ms. Ortiz. How would you approach a case involving a defendant or litigant from a community with historically low trust in the legal system?
With patience, dignity, and courtesy without bias. I'm glad this question was asked, because in order to feel trust in a courtroom, our bench must reflect the community that it serves. As a DA, my role wasn't that just of a prosecutor or that of a child abduction attorney. It was that of an outreach person in our community. So for the last 16 years, I personally have been out to schools, I've created programs for underrepresented youth and the underserved population for the very goal of building trust in the justice system. We provided opportunity for the youth to go into court and meet Judge Cortez, our only Latino judge, and other judges who were there to share their experiences. Because what we need is to build a bank of trust on the bench. And to do that, we must be approachable and we must open our doors and welcome them. With our Youth Leadership Academy that I created 10 years ago now, we spent 3 days with the youth getting to observe a mock trial, meeting with police officers, with defense attorneys, with offenders themselves, so that they can get to know the judicial system. But in the end, Latinos take up, the population of Latinos is 50% in Woodland and 30% in Yolo County. Yet out of 11 judges, there was only 1. We can do better.
Yes, oh, sorry.
Thank you. So, how would I approach a case involving a defendant or litigant from a community with historically low trust? At least to some extent, the same way I would approach any case, right? Because different treatment is one of the ways that you can undermine trust. I think the key is not to treat people differently, and I don't think one should assume that you can tell on an individual basis who does and doesn't, right, trust the system. I won't make any assumptions based on what community one is from, but my approach to the job as a whole accounts for the fact that trust is not automatic, it's not a given. So trust is earned by how you do the job. So for example, through preparation. I read files carefully, I review the law. I come prepared when I take the bench. Because when a judge is prepared, everything goes better, things run more smoothly, it's more efficient, but also people can tell that you're taking their case seriously, and that helps develop trust. Second, through consistency, right? The rules have to apply to everyone the same. You have to treat everyone the same. That includes lawyers or self-represented litigants, both. One thing that I've seen happen, and I try to avoid myself, is being too familiar with the attorneys that appear in your courtroom. You might see the same lawyers over and over again, but when you're in the courtroom, you shouldn't let that familiarity allow other people in the courtroom to feel like outsiders. And third, through clarity. Court can be a confusing and kind of intimidating place. So explaining clearly what's going on to people, what to expect, what happens next, can help earn that trust. So I'm not going to adjust justice based on who's in front of me. I focus on running a courtroom that is prepared, consistent, and transparent.
Thank you. And now to questions submitted by our audience, and as a reminder, each candidate has 1.5 minutes to respond. So, Mr. Davis, as a judge, how would you ensure that no political considerations enter your decision-making?
So I will say that, I mean, it's a fair question because it's, of course, absolutely critical. I do think it's somewhat easier than you might expect because you really, as a judge or as a commissioner, what I do now, you're making decisions just one at a time based on the information that's in front of you and the applicable law. And you just do that over and over again. In a family law assignment, I mean, politics, and really in just about all assignments, right, politics just doesn't really enter into it. I think when people think of the controversies that, the U.S. Supreme Court takes up that are politically, have a political sort of valence to them, it's not really the sorts of decisions that trial-level judges are making at the state level. But beyond that, I would just say that with a total commitment to that canon of ethics that Ms. Ortiz referred to, and with the experience that I've developed doing the work over the last several years, and with the variety in my professional background as well. Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz, I'll read the question again. As a judge, how would you ensure that no political considerations enter your decision-making?
I guess to start with, we are prohibited from allowing political considerations into our courtroom. So I guess that is a simple answer of, it simply won't. Politics have no place in the courtroom. I've been in this courtroom, in a trial courtroom, for enough years to see that it has no place in the courtroom. And when I speak to my victims that I am standing before as a prosecutor, at no point do I ask what their political affiliation is. At no point do I ask whether they're documented or not documented, because justice is fair and justice is for all. And so the answer is I would remain consistent in what I've been doing and leaving politics out of my role as a judge, just like it has no place for my role as a prosecutor. And that is how I present it.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, you state that, yeah. What are your thoughts on zero bail, especially for repeat offenders? So zero bail, your opinion?
So I've been sitting in an arraignment court now for a few years, and it's at arraignment court where a judge decides whether or not they're going to get set bail and the reasons why. It has, I won't say that I haven't been frustrated at the individuals who are released at my objection. As a judge, I will follow the law and do the legal analysis, but I will also be bringing in a perspective of how zero bail has failed in a lot of circumstances. While I can follow the law, I can't turn away from the perspective and the experience that I have of people that are being released on zero bail just to return, having committed more and more crimes. I think that's something we need to fix. However, as a judge, I will follow the law and not let my opinions of it rule.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Mr. Davis, I'll repeat the question. What are your thoughts on zero bail, especially for repeat offenders?
I mean, look, keeping politics out of it requires that we answer questions in ways that feel like we're dodging them, right? Because that's appropriate. The fact is, what bail is set at is really controlled by more than one thing, neither of which I have control over, which are the legislature and the California Supreme Court's decision in People v. Humphrey and the new decision just today, which I haven't fully read, but I will. But so these are, what I will say is I will follow the law when it comes to pretrial release and setting bail. I will take into account the accused's ability to pay, because the California Supreme Court has said equal protection demands that, and being the highest court in our state, that's the law, and I will take into account what the legislature demands of us. I will set aside any perspective I have about any issues as I rule on specific cases that come before me, including conditions of pretrial release. I will make decisions based on the facts presented to me in just that case and the applicable law.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz. Oh no, Mr. Davis, sorry. What law school did you attend, and what was your specialty and when?
Okay, so, gosh, I'm going to have to admit to y'all that I started in Davis here in Yolo County, but I did transfer to Berkeley. But the reason for that is very specific and answers the second part of the question. So I went into law school with a specific interest to become a public defender. That was the work I wanted to do. And I wanted to work on death penalty cases. And so when I had the opportunity to transfer to Berkeley, I was excited by their death penalty clinic. And I went to Berkeley. I was able to be a research assistant for one of the directors of the clinic. I became a member of the clinic. And sure enough, I went on to do that work for most of a decade, representing men and women on California's death row. I'm proud of the work that I did. I went into law school. My hero at the time, he's still a hero of mine, is Brian Stevenson, an attorney, a civil rights and post-conviction attorney in Alabama. I wanted to be like him when I grew up and had the chance to make some, get some distance toward that goal. And all of that experience, and I think the connection I had to Berkeley, allowed me to eventually teach the class on the death penalty and the Constitution at Berkeley Law, which was an experience I loved. I've also taught at Davis, and I would look forward to continuing to teach as an adjunct as a judge here in Yolo County.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, what law school did you attend, and your specialty, and when?
Thank you. So my role to the bench, my role to a prosecutor and next to the bench is based out of public service and public safety. So I started with the CHP with a desire to be a highway patrol officer. So that public service, public safety is what drove me to actually start with the CHP as a cadet in the CHP Academy. An injury caused my dream of becoming an officer to be derailed, and I worked as a civilian. So it wasn't straight out of college that I decided I want to be an attorney. It was straight out of college that I decided I want to get into a career where I'm protecting the vulnerable and keeping people safe. So after a few years with the CHP, it was a respectful job. I wanted to go back to being boots on the ground, protecting people and keeping them safe. So I decided to go to Lincoln Law School in Sacramento. It was the most affordable one. And I worked full-time from 8 to 5 for the CHP and went to school from 6 to 9:30. I did that for 4 years to then become boots on the ground as a prosecutor standing next to victims. It's that same public safety, public service heart that I have that has drawn me to get to the bench now.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz? Many people dread jury service. If you could, are there ways you would improve the jury selection process?
So, I happen to be different than most people because I enjoy being a juror. I was a juror twice, once as an undergrad and once in law school. So for me, it was fascinating, and I think it's a responsibility and it's an honor to serve on a jury, but I get it, the waiting around. So a lot of that, I think people would consider spare time, a lot of the times when we're trying to just go for hardships. I understand it's frustrating. I think we've done a good job since 2020 and we're not requiring everyone to come into our courthouse to go through the hardships. Now it's done a little different. And I would have to work with my colleagues to figure out what they thought, because I'm certain with the brains that we have on our bench, I'm certain they would have come up with a great way to do it if there was another great way to do it. But sometimes we just have to stick with the way it's been done. I would like to say I would make it more entertaining if I'm a judge in the jury selection process, but I just simply can't, so.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, many people dread jury service. If you could, are there ways you would improve the jury selection process?
Yeah, well, I would share. I think I'm different as well, which is that I would love to serve on a jury. I got into the box once here in Yolo County. At the time, I was in law school, and they asked, what kind of lawyer I wanted to be. I said public defender. I felt like the DA was looking at me sideways. Then it came out that my brother's in the sheriff's department, my sister-in-law's in the sheriff's department. Then they didn't know what to make of me. But so, what I would do to change jury selection, I agree that remote appearances, actually more generally too, but in jury service makes sense and reduce the burden on jurors, and that's a good thing. But as far as bigger, broader reforms, I would have to know, details about how that is working right now to suggest that anything is needed. I have litigated cross-section claims, right? So claims that there's been a violation of the Sixth Amendment because the jury isn't being pulled from a fair cross-section of the community, which creates serious problems if there's underrepresentation of certain groups in the big pool, because that obviously is going to affect the jury makeup itself when it comes to it. But I have no reason to believe that Yolo County is running afoul of the Sixth Amendment right now. So, that's not a reform I'm suggesting I would pursue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, describe an instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to refer to being a candidate right now for judge. It's kind of tough. A lot of people want to ask questions that you can't answer. I've sought endorsements from groups that have questionnaires asking what your position is on a whole list of things, and I have responded to those questionnaires saying I decline to answer all of your questions, but happy to share about my experience. I have faced just specific ethical dilemmas around that, given the support I do have and am proud to have from democratic groups, which are obviously explicitly not just political but partisan. But we are allowed as judicial candidates to be supported by such groups and to share that we have that support. One thing I have specifically done, I don't know if Ms. Ortiz has had the occasion yet, but there's a useful hotline that you can call as a judicial candidate, and you get connected with a judge who then talks through an issue with you, and you determine, that, okay, yes, that's permitted. So I'm going to continue to take very seriously all of those ethical rules that we are subject to, both as judicial officers and also as judicial candidates.
Ms. Ortiz, I'll read the question. Describe an instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
So, man, you hit that one on the head with how difficult it is to run a campaign, a judicial campaign that is supposed to be nonpartisan, non-political, but I think generally it's almost like people don't know how to approach that. And it's the angering of why can't you say this, why don't you say this, why does that person get to say this and that person doesn't. And I think Ryan and I have done an excellent job, I think, getting through this together and making the commitment that this is nonpartisan, non-political, and we're going to make sure that our supporters understand that too. So I'm appreciative of that in running an ethical campaign. And then as a DA, we were always taught, do the right thing. If a police officer made a decision to arrest that I didn't think was worthy of a charging, I had to say, I'm going to follow the law, and I do not think that I can prove my burden. And a lot of that takes courage to be able to go back to the officer and say, I'm sorry. I know you did your part in making that arrest, but I also have a higher level, a higher ethical level that I have to follow, and I'm not going to proceed simply because you made the arrest.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. That was the last audience question. And now on to candidate closing statements. To ensure fairness, we'll begin with the candidate who gave the final opening statement, which was Mr. Davis.
Thank you. So I've had the opportunity to talk about my experience as a public defender and attorney general, and of course as a judicial officer and my statewide perspective through my involvement with the Judicial Council. But I'm running to bring all of that experience home in the service of the community that raised me and where I'm raising my own family now. Because Yolo County is home. My dad was a professor at UC Davis in plant pathology, so core, Aggie. My mom was a teacher at Lee Junior High here in Woodland. My stepmom was a longtime educator and principal at North Davis Elementary. My wife grew up here and is now teaching at an elementary school that I and both of our kids attended. And we chose to raise our own family here because we love it. And I think that has shown up in my public service. I've served as the president of the Davis Schools Foundation, as a city commissioner, a volunteer for the neighborhood court program. I've served meals or prepared meals at Fourth and Hope with people like Yolo County's own Judge Rahill and Judge McGuire, volunteered my drumming skills in the service of the Winters Shakespeare. So I'm not running to become something new. I love the job that I have as a judicial officer. I'm running to bring my experience and my skills home. I've spent my career preparing to be a judge, but spent my life preparing to be a judge in Yolo County in particular.
Thank you. And now Ms. Ortiz?
Thank you. I agree, it's a blessing to be able to grow up in one location. I was not blessed to choose where I was born and raised, okay? I was raised all over the state of California. We moved every 5 years. But when it came time for me to decide where I was going to serve, I chose Yolo County, and I haven't left, because this county and the children of this county became home for me. So for 16 years, over 16 years now, as a DA, as an outreach person for our office, as a mother who sends her children to school here in this county. My husband served 27 years as a law enforcement officer in this county and now coaches softball in this county. My grandfather, an immigrant farm worker, a bracero, came and worked for the citizens of this county in those fields. I too love this county, and I know the courtroom, the courthouse in this county. And this is where I want to continue to serve, because I've proven my loyalty, and I now have the ability to sit up on the bench and serve the whole county.
Thank you. Please join me in a round of applause for our candidates. In addition to candidate forums, the League of Women Voters sponsors Vote 411, an unbiased online voters resource created to provide in-depth information about your candidates and ballot members. Search Vote 411 on the internet and enter your address for the candidates and measures on your ballot, as well as important election dates. Candidates post their details and responses to those questions, so the information you receive comes directly from them. We would like to thank Dale Dennis and his crew from Woodland TV, which is broadcasting, streaming, and recording this forum tonight. It will be available online until after the election on June 2nd. Look for the link at the League of Women Voters of Yolo County website or at woodlandtv.org. We also thank the City of Woodland and the staff at this beautiful community and senior center for the use of this facility. Thank you to the candidates for coming and speaking to us tonight, and to the many League of Women Voters members who helped make this event possible. I'd also like to thank you, the audience, for your respectful attention and thoughtful questions. Your informed participation is critical to our democracy. To learn more about your local League of Women Voters, please visit our website. I encourage you to stay for our next presentation starting at 7:15, a candidate forum for Yolo County Board of Supervisors, District 3. Thank you to our audience here in Woodland and to those viewing online tonight.